Can Luke Fickell and Jeff Grimes' offense be as prolific as 2017? We get into that. Basketball wins again. And the one thing we rarely question about this football staff, recruiting. Junior Day is here. I'm Rajiv. He's Justin. Here we go.
Welcome to the Bucky Report, your destination for all things Wisconsin Badgers. Authentic takes.
Oh my God.
Game analysis.
Touchdown Badgers! Ring one up!
And discussion from the fan perspective. Woo-hoo! Thanks for joining us and on Wisconsin.
Welcome to the Bucky Report. We are your hosts, Rajiv and Justin, back together on a Sunday evening to talk about all things Wisconsin Badgers. On today's show, as we look ahead to spring football and better days ahead, we talk about the offense next year and how prolific they can be. If we average 30 points per game, how many wins could we end up with? Speaking of football, and now that the 2025 class is signed, it's time for Luke Fickell to turn his attention to 2026 with the first Junior Day this weekend in Madison. We'll touch on a couple of Badger targets. It was an up and down week for Greg Gard as the Badgers took a loss out west at UCLA and then pulled it back with an absolute thrashing of Connor Essegian and the Nebraska Cornhuskers. We touch on the weekend basketball and play a fun game of higher or lower. We are at the Bucky Report on Twitter, YouTube, and wherever you can find your podcast. If you like what we're doing, hit the subscribe button so you know when we make new content. Hit the like button. We appreciate all the support of the show as always. Justin, the NFL was pretty anticlimactic today, unless you're an Eagles or a Chiefs fan, because nobody cares about those teams. It really blows. I was really hoping for a Commanders Bills or at least one of them. So what I did was I put a parlay bet together of the Eagles and the Chiefs winning, so that so I would like buy a victory of one of the other teams that were going to win. I hit that bet. Plus 140. So that was nice. I got a little more than even money on that. So I'll take the win there. But yikes, man, just another really, really crappy way to end the football season. A Super Bowl that really nobody wants to see. If you're an Eagles fan, which I know some of you here are, congratulations. Good. Kudos to you. Enjoy yourself. Now, here I will say this. Those of you who are Philadelphia Eagles fans, and I know there's some on here, I will root for the Eagles in the Super Bowl because I cannot stand the Kansas City Chiefs. And I am so over them. I don't want to hear about three-peat bullshit. No.
Nothing,
keep me out of there. Yeah.
Nothing seemed faker to me than watching a couple of Chiefs guys on the sidelines crying in each other's shoulders. Like, oh, it's the greatest accomplishment I've had in my life since last season. Like, get out of here with this. Like, this is stupid. Like, I'm so over them. I actually want to see Josh Allen get it done because it's just I love the backyard. Like he's the only quarterback in the league I look at that reminds me of Favre a little bit, where it's just like running around and just slinging it. And it's like I like watching that guy get opportunity. Now their defense was just brutal today. Like they just could not stop the Chiefs, even in good situations, couldn't get it done. It's like you guys are killing me.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a bad game for them all around. Yeah, I have a soft spot in my heart for Bills fans. I have two of my really good friends are Bills fans. But I obviously, as you know, I'm a Colts fan, and I lived through the Brady v. Manning days, and I was on basically what is now the Josh Allen side, the side that could never get it done except once. We did get it done, thank you. So, like, I really do feel for him, and I think it's painful. I understand it's painful, and I hate to see the Chiefs do it again, but whatever. The refs, the chefs, Chiefs, whatever. The Eagles are actually pretty good. I'm interested to see how that happens. We did have 5 Badgers on the rosters in today's championship games. So very good, and kudos to that. How you doing, Justin? We got a win today in basketball. That's exciting. How you doing? How's your
dominant win today in basketball? They look good. They're hitting threes like crazy.
I mean, it's a pretty prolific offense. We're going to get into basketball. We're going to start with football today.
I would like to see a little more consistent, like we were talking at one point in that first half. They hit like a 7-minute streak where they got 2 points, and it's like, all right, guys, let's just settle down a little bit here and run some good sets. Because
I mean that was pretty much that was my ugly today on the reaction show. I just said like that was our first really long stretch of no points in this season. Like to have a 6-minute stretch of no points, that's bad. But again, like, I'm confident that this team is good enough to avoid that for the most part, right?
I mean,
it should not.
yet, still having a game with that type of streak.
Yeah, I mean, Will Hannah says I'm hoping for the Eagles. Yeah, I mean, so am I. Bo Dragon, I hate both teams. Yeah, that sounds about right. Charlie says Bills need Jim Leonard as defensive coordinator. Yes, they do. They are really in need of something. All right, so let's talk football first. Justin posed an interesting question to me yesterday, so I wanted to talk about it a little bit today.
Well,
the one thing we know.
Let's clarify on the question on this, because you said 30 points. I said the most since 20. If we average what we averaged in 2017, which I think was like 31.5 or something like that.
Yeah.
So if we get to that, that's a little bit higher, but than 30. But if we got to that, what do you think the record would be?
Right. So that's the question. What do you think the record is if we get to 31? So let's say we do. Let's say 32 points a game. If we get there, my answer to this, and I'm curious what everyone says in the chat as well. I think that, first of all, and we'll get into the offense in a minute. Let's start with the offense and we'll give this answer in a minute. The offense is definitely going to be better than it was last year because of Braden Locke not being quarterback. That's a huge win. Huge win. If you break down, we've done this before, we kind of look at the two deep. The offensive line certainly lost a couple of pieces, but for the most part, I think we're both pretty confident the offensive line is good. Obviously, rising star in Kevin Heywood, and a lot of guys are back on the line. We're confident in the guys in the backfield as well, in Darrion Dupree and Dillan Jones, and of course the receivers, maybe not quite as much, but Trech, Kekahuna returning, Vinny Anthony returning certainly makes that a really easy thing to say. Okay, we're gonna like it. What do you think are the keys, Justin, to this offense performing well? What has to happen for this offense to be up as prolific as 2017?
They have to be able to run the football consistently, and that means against anybody. Like if you're gonna score 32 a game, that means you're running the football well. Because I don't think this is going to be an offense that goes out there and is prolific through the air. I think they can be good through the air, but I don't think they're going to be a team that's dominant in the passing game. So if you can have a good passing game coupled with a really good run game, I think it gives them that opportunity to be around that scoring average for the year.
Yeah, and for me, I'm always going to point to turnovers. I think this team was always the best that we could be when we weren't turning the ball over, when we didn't have a quarterback that just didn't really know what he was doing back there. And I do have a lot of confidence in Billy Edwards and Jeff Grimes. Bo Dragon says Grimes can do more with the same pieces. Longo was a total no fit.
I would agree with that.
Bo's been saying this for a while, and to be fair, he was right because it wasn't the case at all. Will Hannah says not just running the ball; they need to be more explosives in the running game. Yeah,
that comes with great. Like I mean, if you're going to have a great running game, there's going to be chunk plays.
Yeah. I don't. So we averaged about 23 points a game, I think, again last year.
23 and a half or something.
Yeah,
like that.
pretty much 2 years in a row. We've been at 23 points per game, which sucks, by the way. I don't see this team being as prolific as 2017 for sure, just because we don't know what Billy Edwards is. Now it could be. Again, we're not. There's really no parts of there's no part of the offense where I'm like, ooh, that's a problem. I mean, even tight end, we got Tanner.
But there's nothing but there's also nothing we look at and we go, this is something we can hang our hat on. So I agree with you. This is more of a hypothetical. Just to clarify with people, we are by no means saying that we expect the offense to score this. It's more of if it surprises us and this is what we get from an offensive standpoint, what do we think it would mean in the course of the season? Like, how would that affect our record?
So for me, the answer to that is it's still 7-5. And I hate to be the downer if that happens, but just again, and I'm going to put this up on the bottom of the screen so you can see it. I mean, when you look at this schedule and you look at the meat of that schedule, like if we average 32 points a game, right? I mean, we're not scoring 32 points on some of these big boys. We're probably scoring 20 on them. And there's still so much of a question mark on defense. There's so much of a question mark on how good the line's going to be, how good the pass rush is going to be, whether the corners can actually do what they need to do, whether we have enough corners on the team. So many question marks that I still look at the schedule and I think best case scenario, we're averaging 32 points a game. We're crushing it offensively. With our defense, 7 wins to me is like, that's probably where we go. I can't really look down at this schedule that we have up on the bottom of the screen and find a path to get to 9 wins, even with a prolific offense.
Let's play a game here.
Yeah.
Obviously we think that the first 2 games are a win.
Yeah.
So if we get to Alabama and I say we would get 27 in that game, do you think we win that game?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't.
And that's fair. I would agree. I would agree with you on that one.
And it's in Tuscaloosa. Like, we're not winning in Tuscaloosa.
No, I agree. But this is just kind of this for the purposes of this is where I'm going. If we get say 35 against Maryland, you think we win that?
Yeah,
I would agree with that. If you get 28 against Michigan, you think we win that?
Michigan's going to be better next year at Michigan. I don't think
there's better offensively.
Yes.
I expect their defense to fall back. I actually think if we can score 28 in that game, we probably win it. Mostly because I think it will probably be a pretty competitive game in general. I don't totally trust that coaching staff still. They definitely made some, like they learned what they could do and what they couldn't do during this last season. But I still think they have a issue at quarterback, and I don't know if that's necessarily been fixed. And I think that defensively, they're going to get significantly worse.
I just don't feel like there's any way we're going to Michigan next year and winning until, frankly, I'm going to say this, until I see our defense play. Just because I just don't like, so that's why for me, the hypothetical in this, again, we're hypothetically, if we were to be as prolific as 2017, what would our record be? Iowa, that's a game we could win if we have a prolific offense. I was going to say,
we get 28 against Iowa. I think we'd feel confident that we have a pretty good chance of winning that.
Right. And then I think the next two, Ohio State at Oregon, I don't.
Those are losses.
Right.
So we're looking at, here's the difference. Here's the difference between me and you so far. So right now, at that point in the season, I would have us at, let's see, a loss to Alabama, a loss to Ohio State, and a loss to Oregon.
You would have us at 5 wins, right?
So 5-3 right now.
Right. And I would have it at 1, 2, 3, 4. I would have it at 4. Right.
We'll say 31 against Washington because I think that's a gettable figure against a team like that. Do you think that's a win?
Yeah. I mean, that's a home game too. I think we could definitely win that one.
Yep.
At IU is the other one I don't see that happening just because they're a pretty good offense too. I don't know. I mean, it's
a really hard game because I don't know what to expect until we see it. Are they going to regress or will they be able to continue to do what they did? It's possible they do. I'd have to take a look at their schedule too and see if it actually stacks up a little better because it's a little better.
It's a little bit harder than it was this year.
Because part of it was they got a chance to grow into themselves over the course of the season. Wisconsin hasn't had that in years, and that's part of the reason why anytime anyone wants to bash us from a win standard, it's like Wisconsin hasn't had a chance to ever get confident in any of the last 3 or 4 seasons. Like every time we played a game, we've had big games early in the season that have kind of been that gut punch to the team to kind of take the wind out of their sails. And so now that's not to say that I think they would have been significantly better, but I think we probably make a bowl game this last year if we had an opportunity to say you don't play Alabama, you play somebody that's more of a common out of conference schedule. If we played a Minnesota out of conference schedule, we probably start out 3-0.
Sure. Agree with that. And then the last 2, Illinois and at Minnesota, I think we can win both of those with good offenses. So that's 7 wins for me. I guess the difference for you, if you have IU and Michigan up there,
I would have said 8 or 9. I think a chance. I think that if we're looking at that type of point total, that means we're going to score on some decent defenses. And I look at this list, and the only teams that I truly trust that potentially have the talent to be really, really high caliber defenses are probably Alabama, Ohio State, and Oregon. I think Michigan, the talent level is going to drop off because they lose a lot on the interior of that defensive line, which is probably going to sting them, which may make them a little bit more gettable on the ground and can kind of make it far more difficult for them to be able to stack up even against the pass when they can't consistently stop the run as easily.
Yeah, and if we do really average that points per game, first of all, we're going to be fun to watch. We are going to win. We're going to definitely go back to a bowl game. Yeah. We're going to win a lot of games, and we're going to put the fear into teams like Michigan, Indiana, and even Ohio State and Oregon. We're going to put the fear into those teams.
If we have that kind of offense, we win that game against Oregon this last year. But Austin is going to be a problem. It's one of the hardest stadiums in the country to play in.
I'm going to be at that game. You know how I feel about West Coast Big Ten games. So I'm definitely going to be there. My neighbor's a big Oregon fan. He's annoying, but we're going to go. I think spring football is not too far away, which is exciting because we'll begin to kind of see some of the new guys out there, see how things go.
We're a week into weight training.
What theoretically could be. What?
We're a week into weight training.
Yeah. Another part of football that we wanted to touch on before we switch over to basketball is junior day. So 2026 class is upon us now. The 25 class is in the books. And Justin, we've been pretty consistent on this show and locked on and everything, like how we feel about Luke Fickell and his recruiting staff and how good of a job they do. It's the one part of, I think, this team, you really just can't, you can't really question. Yeah, go ahead and put that up there. Gary Barta. Rajiv at a game. Well, Mark Oregon down is a loss. See, Gary, this is why I'm going to that game, because yes, I do go to losses. We have a really bad record, Justin.
I will say Oregon's not necessarily going to be a great team. Like, they're replacing a very, very good quarterback. It's not set in stone that they're going to have great quarterback play this next year.
They've got another guy on there. They've got one of the top recruits in the country, though.
He hasn't played much though, so it really is going to depend. Dillan Gabriel was really, really efficient this last year.
Yeah,
so the one thing I will say, I think the defense is going to be really good this next year, and that could be a problem.
I mean, yeah, I'm not going to any of the basketball. I'm not going to any more basketball games this year. I know that Ryan, I think, is going to the Oregon game. I will go to the Oregon football game, but I'm planning on also thinking about, we've got to pick our game, but I know that we've kind of talked about Iowa potentially as the game we go to next year, because we don't want to go to an automatic loss. So I hope that doesn't jinx the team, because that's not very good. But nonetheless, I digress. Junior day, we had quite a bit of guys come to Madison this weekend. I think they took in the game today at the Kohl Center. That's fun. We got a nice victory there. And then we kind of can look ahead, and obviously as the recruiting calendar kind of starts now with junior day, and then it progresses through to certainly official visits come in the summer, which we'll get into a lot of that. That's when we really start to build out the class. And then, of course, signing day at the end of the year. So from now to the end of the year, we're kind of in that full 26 cycle at this point. Let's start, Justin. We're going to go through 5 or 6 names. This is not comprehensive. Now, Nick Osen from 247 Sports is going to be coming on our show next weekend, and we're going to do a full deep dive into all things junior day, the 26 class, some hot prospects, things like that. So if you're into recruiting, definitely check us out next weekend as well. We are still going to touch on it today, though. I want to start, Justin, with Titan Davis, 4-star, 6'5", 238 edge rusher.
Oh, he's 260 now.
260. Sorry. Yes. I don't know why I wrote that. He has... I mean, this dude is like, so I'm gonna pull up his film if I can just get this going. Now he's got an offer list that is ridiculous. Like there aren't many schools that aren't offering him. However, as you pointed out right before the show, he came here. Here. And that's really impressive. So yeah, 262. Sorry, Bo Dragon. I even corrected you. So I'm gonna share my screen here, and we're gonna just kind of put this on.
Yeah. So my early thought on watching him, I know Ryan absolutely loves Sam Leteju. He reminds me of him. He's super big, physical, athletic. This is a guy that can really get into the backfield.
Jeez, look at that.
Yeah, he's very, very disruptive. I think he's going to play a 5-tech for us. He's either going to play that or the edge, like what we saw this last cycle with Williams. I think that's what you're going to use him. Ryan Herring's, Hannah.
Yeah, I mean, and you can see how explosive he is and how he has got quite a motor on him too. He's very quick, right? He has good quick moves. 5-tech is exactly right. I mean, I feel like I feel the same way. He's definitely an edge kind of a guy. Look, we talk a lot about rushing the passer on this show and how much it's needed. And I will say, there was a good run stop that he just had there too. His vision is really good, right? He's really good. You'll see some more as we'll keep progressing through these highlights. You'll see some more where his vision is great. He very quickly can get off of blocks. Now, again, this is a high school, so how quickly he gets off blocks at the next level is different. But he's very quick with his hands, and he can quickly get off blocks and then make impactful plays, which I really like about this guy's film. And yeah, look how big this man is. He's just a big guy. He's 6'5", 262. And, you can see he can stand up on the edge. He definitely has really good side-to-side speed, too. I think he can chase the play as well. But I mean, look at that.
Holy smokes.
He really can just be super disruptive. Now, if you're listening to this on YouTube, you're not going to obviously see these highlights we're playing up there. But go to huddle.com. All these highlights are available there. Huddle does a great job of getting that stuff. You can just search by the name. Anything else on Titan Davis that you see that you really like?
No, I think this is like the one thing I took away from everyone's film that I watched is I felt like they were all really good from an athletic standpoint, and looking at the measurables on these guys, they're all high quality players. We'll see what they do once they actually get into a college program, but they're no slouches athletically. And Titan was definitely one of them that I looked at, and I'm like, this is the type of body you want in your defensive line or edge position. Like he's going to be either split wide as a defensive end, or he's going to be an edge and play as an outside linebacker, similar to what Jalen Williams is coming in as, like a jack.
Yeah, I think Jalen Williams is really good as far as recruiting goes. That's someone that's there. Another outside linebacker is Jackson Samuels Ford. He is a 6'5", 235. Or it's a 4.6 40, by the way. I'm going to put his up here as well. Let me get that going. And here we go with Jackson Samuels Ford. So another fast pass rushing type of a guy, really, really quick off the edge too. And he's not, I don't look at him and think, instant impact like I do with Titan Davis, Justin, but still a guy that can definitely play again, like a 5 tech, and really get on the edge and be disruptive. What are your thoughts?
You know who he reminds me of from this last cycle? Jaden Woods.
Okay.
He played he originally committed to Penn State, and the measurables are similar. I believe they have Samuels listed as, or Ford listed as a 4.65 kind of guy. And if he's that kind of edge, that's right in the ballpark of what Woods was this last cycle. I think you can see it at times. Like I always look at a guy and look at how twitchy they are. He's definitely a guy that's more fast than twitchy.
He's definitely not as twitchy as a Titan Davis for sure.
Yes. So when I look at him, it's like you can see the speed. There's a couple of plays here where they'll split him out as a tight end, and I'm like, okay, I can see the speed now. Like when he gets moving, he has some jets to him, but he's not a guy that I look at that's like, we see guys that you look at like Clayton, like where it's obvious that he's going to get on top of people very quickly. This is a guy that's going to require he's going to need strength too. Like he's going to have to transition that speed to power and be able to kind of use brute force a little bit more as a pass rusher.
Now, he also has a pretty good offer list, and I think he's listed as a 4-star. Correct me if I'm wrong, Justin. He is. When I watch this film, of course, I am no expert in any of this at all. I feel like he looks more of like a 3-star to me. I don't feel like he's he's certainly not a
That's kind of how I felt when I looked at him. Like there's times when I look at him, he looks a little bit lumbering, but you can see the athleticism. Like you can see him chase a guy down. He looks really good when he gets moving. But the first couple steps, he doesn't necessarily have that where you just it explodes.
That explosive burst is not there, and Titan Davis certainly has that. Yeah. But these are two of the guys that were here this week. Justin, the other one that I wanted to put up here, this is the last film that I have prepped, is Zach Washington. Mm-hmm. He is a wide receiver, and his measurables I don't have in front of me, Justin, but
he's, I believe, 6'2", like in the 170 range. I don't remember what his weight was to be exact, but I did watch his film earlier. Kid just flies. He can really run. He's got a big body. Like at times when you look at him and you see his like recruiting profile pic, it makes him look small. He is a guy who I think we lack on the roster outside of like Quincy Burrows. He's a guy who has good size that can really stretch the field. He's explosive. And that's something we don't have a lot of on this roster. Like they need somebody that is capable of running a fly route and getting behind somebody. And I think that that's definitely something he can do. We'll see how, deep his route tree is going to be. He hasn't really you watch a lot of his film on here and it's a lot of him just running up, a post or a fly route. And you're kind of like, okay, well, he's really fast. He's definitely can get on top of people, but I'm not seeing him have to be ultra precise as a route runner.
Yeah. There's a lot of kick returns on this tape, a lot. Which is good. Like that's obviously a skill.
He's obviously explosive. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing you see here is you're right. I mean, he's a guy that he's a burner. He's fast. He's a 4-4 kind of a guy. He can get behind the defense. But the question is, I think when I see film like this, I just feel like on his senior film, he's gonna put more stuff on film, like route tree type stuff.
Yep.
Because if he's gonna get the big offers, which he has certainly some, he's definitely gonna have to show that he can run that and be that clean route runner. Very similar to what I saw from like a Cam Smith last cycle that I wasn't a huge fan of. We didn't end up getting him, which is why I liked Eugene Hilton better, because I thought Eugene Hilton was simply better of a pure receiver, right? And this guy is like, we need speed, we need depth in the room. Certainly, that's your guy. You're right about like a Vinny Anthony, Quincy Burrows type guy, but there's just not enough there from a route tree perspective. But again, this is basically another like post route. It's just a lot of the same stuff, which is fine. All that's super important.
I mean, he's making teams pay constantly. He probably had 15 touchdowns this last year and like 5 kick returns and 10 probably receiving touchdowns. But you look at this, he's a guy that if you misstep on, you could clearly see it in high school. He just absolutely destroys whoever it is. Like they're just done the second he gets that step. They need some of that here. I think he's big enough bodied that he's going to be a guy that offers a little bit both in terms of burst and just size for the 50-50 balls. Wisconsin doesn't have a ton of that. They're going to have to develop him. Like I don't think he's being pushed as much as he's probably going to need to be when he gets to Wisconsin to be effective. Yeah.
But certainly the speed is there, which we like. Another wide receiver, which I don't have film pulled up for any other guys, but Owen Cabell. Tell me about he's a 3-star guy. Tell me what your thoughts were on Owen.
I watched a little bit of him. He to me looked a little Jared Abbrederis. I don't think he's as smooth or as twitchy as what Abbrederis was when you'd watch him in his route running. Abbrederis is really good at setting people up. And part of it was because he really was capable of getting on top of you quickly with the way he ran and created separation very quickly. I don't know if Cabell has necessarily that level. I do think I see some similarities in just the way they move on the field. And he's a guy who does have some good speed. But again, he's another guy I look at that I'm not like, there's a lot of seeing him run up the field and just blow by guys. So it's very interesting, the type of receivers that we're going after. I'm also very curious to see how they stay on, which guys they tend to stay on going forward with Grimes as the new OC, because he's going to have some perspective on what we want to actually see in this cycle for the receiver room.
And that's going to be really interesting to see kind of and it's going to be what we end up seeing from his actual offense too. It's fascinating to see how things are different, because we definitely saw a certain kind of a type that Longo was looking for. And now we're not really sure.
37, he wanted 37 slot guys.
Slot receivers. Yeah. Just load them up. Another one is another defensive lineman, 3-star defensive lineman, Jake Johnson. This is another one that I think you really like. Tell me about Jake Johnson.
Yeah, I like him. He's listed as 6'3", 270, 275. I like his body type because he's a little more squat as a guy who's 6'3". And what I like about it is he's super physical. He's got really nice burst off the line, but he's a guy who has a low center of gravity, you can tell, and he is really good at getting underneath people. And when he gets underneath their pads, you watch him, he just walks people right back into the quarterback in high school. And he's playing in Texas, so he's not playing in a state that doesn't have good football. I think he can be really disruptive. I think he can be really physical in the interior. This is the type of guys you want, especially if we potentially are going to a more like 4-down lineman type look. He's the type of guy you need at nose tackle on the interior. Like, I think that he's capable of being that and playing it at a really high level. To me, it looks like a 4-star.
So I'm seeing him listed as at 290. It's Simeon that's 275. Yeah. Jake Johnson 290, and we've talked about the desperate need that this defense has to get bigger up front. So if he's 290 right now, that means he absolutely can be up at 310. He's 6'3". His frame isn't super. He's not like a 6'5" guy, but you want a guy that's like got that low center of gravity that's it's on the middle of the line. So he's definitely a tackle 3 tech probably guy, not maybe 0, but I don't think 0. I think he's probably
it'll be interesting to see how big they can get him and carry it effectively. I really like his burst and physicality. I don't know if you want him to play that. He's not a guy that I look at that you think is going to be just plugged in the middle and just a tree stump. He just doesn't look like that.
The last guy we'll talk about is another defensive lineman. Oh, sorry, I pulled it up there. Yeah, 6'3", 275, Damari Simeon out of St. Augustine Prep. This is another one that you liked. Probably more of a 3-tech guy.
Yeah, I think he's another 3-tech guy. A lot like Johnson, he's a guy who's really physical and strong and shows good explosiveness off the get off. I think this is another guy that, like, again, he's listed as a 3-star. I look at his film and from an athletic standpoint, he looks like a 4-star. Like, he looks like a guy who's going to be disruptive in the middle of the field and create tackles for loss, be able to get the quarterback uncomfortable and get him, kind of moving off his spot. Both of those guys look like they're guys that are going to cause problems for an offensive line. And I think when I look at it, I'm really impressed with these two guys that they got them in, because both of them would be really good gets, in my opinion, in terms of the defensive line class for this cycle.
Yeah, we have to get bigger. I think that's clearly what's happening. I like the guys that they're looking at. I think that's the big takeaway from me. And you said this right before we started the show. You like the guys that were here for junior day. It's nice. Like, they're just juniors, right? They're still got senior film we got to put out there in the fall. We'll have OVs in the summer. Like, it's a good sort of grouping of guys that they're bringing in. They're bringing in a certain type. They clearly want to get bigger. They're changing what they're doing. They're going to continue to add in the transfer portal the same way, right? They're going to be looking at 3-0 tech guys that can be 290 plus and really affect that way they're doing it. Receiver and skill position players, we'll see. We haven't talked about running backs, and I know that we're going to need to really do something about that. I don't think there were any running backs that were here for junior day. And I looked at the list, I don't see anyone. And I know that I feel like you're a little concerned about that. What are your thoughts on the running back recruiting?
Yeah, I'm really curious to see where this goes. They have to have a good cycle for running backs. And I'm not talking like you need at least one of the guys. Like, I think it's a 2-back class. One of those guys has to be a stud. Like, you need a 4-star back that's coming in that you're looking at, like, this guy could be a really, really good player for us for a couple of years. You got nobody last cycle. So now you're staggered a little bit with the guys that you have. You have to get somebody that's a quality back in this one. And then you hopefully have somebody who, like, has some room to grow and turn it, kind of like getting Atuka this last class, where you look at it and you're like, there's a lot of upside there. He maybe doesn't have the pedigree of the other two guys, but you look at him and say, he has a lot of upside. He could eventually turn into a really good back for us too. And that's what I think you need. You need a guy who's going to be really good and a guy who you can trust to potentially grow into something.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Let me ask you this quickly about the running backs before we move on. And I answered this question the other night. Who do you feel like has more yards next year? Dylan Jones or Darrion Dupree?
I would say right now, it would not shock me to see it. Are we talking all purpose or are we talking running?
Rushing yards.
Rushing yards, I say there's a chance that Jones is the guy. I just think that my concern with Dupree is, how does he handle the carries? Is he a guy who can go 20 carries in a game and hold up for a whole season? I don't know if he necessarily is that. I think Jones has got a better body for that. And I think ideally, to me, if I look at Dupree, I think you want to get him around 15 carries, and that's probably about it. And then maybe get 20 for Jones. And I think that in this type of offense, if anyone who watched Kansas last year, they had Hinshaw and I'm trying to remember who their other back was. They had a really, really good running back, and that was Devin Jones. Or Devin, I know it's Devin. I can't remember his last name. But he's going to the NFL. So they had two really good backs, and they would split them fairly evenly in most games. And one guy was a little bit more of a blunt instrument, and then you had Devin Neal. And Neal was just like an all-around back, really good back. I think both of these guys are capable of being that level of back. He was a guy who I think ran for like maybe 1,200 yards or something like that this last year. That's the type of area where I think we can get with the running back room that we have.
Yeah. So I think Dylan Jones is the guy. I think he's going to be the leading rusher on the team, just because he's that every down back between the tackles, kind of a running back. And we'll see whether Cade Yakameli can find his way into that rotation as well, which is interesting enough.
He'll be
who are you most confident in this entire offense? When you look at the offense next year, we'll wrap up our discussion with the offense here with a couple questions coming in we'll get to in a second, then we'll switch to basketball. Who are you most confident in on this team offensively?
Koziol.
Yeah,
I think he's going to have a really good season for us. I think he's going to be used. I think tight end is going to be a much bigger part of the passing game than people are expecting right now. I know based off of what I've heard from Grimes and what I've watched last year at Kansas, you are going to see Vinny Anthony get his chances. They're definitely going to give him opportunity to go up the field and get the ball because Kansas did that, and that's what what Grimes has said is he likes to take shots. He likes to reel in the defense and then go over the top. So you're going to have that. Trech will be interesting. I think he's going to get a fair amount of catches. Anyone who watched Kansas last year, Luke Grimm for them was their kind of slot guy like we use here, where he's the guy who ends up with 4 or 5 catches every game for 60, 70 yards and ends up being probably the most productive, but not necessarily the most explosive. So you may see that with Trech where he gets catches. I don't know what he's going to have in terms of yards. I wouldn't be shocked to not see him be the top yardage guy. Probably will be Vinny because I do think they're going to give him opportunity.
Yeah, what I'm most confident in, multiple parts of the offense, truthfully. Tanner Koziol, you said it, clearly, the player that's there. I think the offensive line, Kevin Heywood, I'm extremely confident in Kevin Heywood and Brunner and
the line in general.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like the line in general just seems like it's going to be so solid. And then you couple that with the other guys I'm positive about, which is the running backs and Dupree and Jones. Dupree, he's already shown it in a year. So I do really feel like he's going to be the guy. I think that there's a lot to be happy about when you look at this offense. The line's going to be there. We've got a couple NFL guys on that line, at least. And then you've got Billy Edwards he is going to be improving on Braden Locke. So we know that. Whether he's going to be an upper echelon, kind of a star kind of guy, is he a middle of the pack, Big Ten? Either way, there's a lot of confidence there as well. And receivers, we'll see what happens there. An interesting question while we transition from football to basketball. This was on the Discord, and I talked about it on a show I did on Friday with Ryan. And it was Herb Herman, I think, maybe, that asked it in the Discord. And the question was, would you take, if you had to pick one, would you take an 8-4 record next year in football or an Elite 8 run this year in basketball? What would you want more right now? So I'll go first while you're thinking. For me, it's football all day. I'm all about Greg Gard and all about this team. And I think I do think we're going to hopefully get to the Sweet 16. But even if it means we lose in the Big Ten in the first round of the tournament, which I don't think is good, and I don't want that. I think our football program is desperate for success right now. So if we could go 8-4 next year, I am just all about it. I want us to have an 8-win team because we are so desperate to go back to some kind of success on the football side that we can survive another year of Gard losing in the first round. Now, you might not survive with it, and I know a lot of people won't, but the basketball program is still heading in a good direction. The football program needs success right away.
I would agree from that standpoint of like which one needs it more. I would think that in terms of the school, if you're looking at it strictly from an accomplishment standpoint, an Elite 8 means more in like the national discussion. But we definitely need, like, an 8-4 season would be considered a total feather in Luke Fickell's cap, especially against that schedule, which is just a murderer's row. So if they get to 8-4 off of that, that would be a great season. That would mean that they probably got close to that 32 points per game we were talking about earlier. Or the defense took a massive step forward.
Bo Dragon says we are not making the Elite 8. Bo, we're going to ask that question in a little bit on our higher lower segment.
Is college basketball that deep? I think it's in play. I don't think it's
it's definitely in play. Look, let me tell you something. When you score 83 points in a game, it's in play. It's always in play. And when you make 17 threes in a game, it's in play. Like, we have a really, really interesting basketball team. We're going to talk about that right now. 2 games this past week. We lose at UCLA. Yes, I was there. I ran into several people who commented on the show and Locked On Badgers. Thank you. It was so cool to meet several people out there. It was just a bad result. We did not get the win. We played really bad defense in the second half. Justin, I know you did the reaction show with Ryan for Locked On. What was your kind of overall takeaway from that game? We almost won, and we did not play that well.
Well, first of all, I told him it's fitting that the game that I choose to come back and do a post game with ends up being the loss. I thought offense was actually pretty good in that game. They got stagnant. They kind of did it again today when they had that long drought. They have times when they fall in love with the three, and they don't necessarily move the ball as well as they should. Defense was just rough in that game, and we talked about that. Like Ryan and I were talking about it, and I'm like, our interior. Like, this is the recipe for Wisconsin. Teams are figuring it out. Like, they're starting to drive to the hoop because there's nobody really there. Now, Winter had actually a pretty good game being disrupted today in the Nebraska game.
Two blocks.
And he probably caused a few other shots to be, uncomfortable. So I look at it as there is a chance that they can work around some of that a little bit. I actually think that they looked pretty good in that game for the most part, but the defense faltered in the second half, and they were just rough. Like, they let UCLA back in that game, and it shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I mean, being at that game, I was thinking, first of all, the atmosphere wasn't that impressive at all. It was fairly light. Now, they had the fires going on there. I don't know how that affected things. From what I hear, UCLA isn't necessarily a good environment, but Pauley Pavilion is a cool place nonetheless. Look, I mean, when Tanjay was shooting the ball the way that he did in the first half, I really thought that was going to be a game that we could get at them. But ultimately, not having any empty possessions for UCLA, seemingly for a long stretch of the second half, it's just not going to get it done. They miss a shot. Mara gets a rebound. He's 7 feet 10 or whatever he is. He's just skying everybody getting a rebound.
Our defense against him was horrendous.
Or we get fouled, or we get a foul, right? Where there was just no empty possessions for UCLA. No matter how often we kind of kept closing the lead a little bit here and there, but every time up the floor, they were just scoring, which, to be fair, we did today to our opponents.
He was 7 for 7 in that game.
Yeah, Mara was 7 of 7. Dude, he
weighs like 220 pounds. Like, he's 7'3" or whatever, and there's no body mass on him.
But we have no body mass on either of our fives. We don't have that. We can't play physical fives. Like, we're gonna face a physical 5 against Maryland this week, and we'll see what happens with that. But the bigger picture I take away from that game is that it's okay. Like, and obviously I wasn't on the reaction show. It's fine. Like, we went on the road into the West Coast and we've split. And I said going into that, if you're like it last week, I said, just split going on the way. That's fine. We need to split on the road as much as possible. And if we go 5-5 on the road in the conference, okay, we're 2-2 right now. That's fine. Like, you're going to lose some of these games. It's the bounce back that matters. I tweeted today about this. The bounce back is the most important thing. Last year, when we started losing games around this time, we went into a tailspin. Today, we blew the doors off the Kohl Center. Welcome back, the students, by the way. Thank you for that. The atmosphere was much better. Mm-hmm. We blew the doors off. Again, a massive 3-point performance. John Tanjay, I think he had 24. I don't have the box score in front of me. Just a huge performance from him. And consistent offensive efficiency once again. Connor Essegian made his return to the Kohl Center. Didn't play that well, which is fine. But he was really very welcome back. And I think a lot of good, hugs and stuff from the guys. I think that's great to see. We wish him well. He wanted to play. He went to Nebraska. That's fine. He's getting tons of minutes, which is good for him. But I think, Justin, a really important bounce back game today to come back and not let it spiral. Nebraska was one of the games last year. And obviously we went on the road and we blew a huge lead. And then we had the Michigan loss earlier in the year at home to a really good team. But winning at home is important, not even making it close. And for the first time in a while, we came out of the second half, and we did not blow our massive lead, which we have been doing a lot recently.
I was going to say, we've been doing a bad job coming out of the half. It was starting to become like every game we would have that. It was consistently becoming a streak where that was going to be what we were going to do. I'm glad to see that we finally rectified that for a game. Hopefully they continue to play hard coming out of the half, because they can't afford to do that on the road. Like, it's going to you're going to lose games because you can't let the crowd and you can't let the team get confident against you. And that's something that they've been allowing lately that they were definitely far better at today. They stepped on Nebraska's throat to start the second half, and basically that game was over with 10 minutes left.
KPB says, I will continue my criticism that Gard did not double Mac to force the ball out of his hands. Yeah, I mean,
he just had to make him go left. I don't even think he had to double him.
Mac was killing us, absolutely crushing us at UCLA. Herb Herman says, I am getting worried about our ability to close out close games versus good opponents. We get too tense, it seems. Small sample size. This is a good point, I think, from Herb, because we have seen the inability to close out the first halves in games really strong has been a thing, right? UCLA, we got that stupid intentional foul, which, by the way, was kind of a lame call. And then today, we give up 4 points just like that. I mean, we have to be careful about that, because these things, like, and listen, we're a turnover happy team. We're not the Badgers of old where we turn the ball over 5 times a game. We don't do that anymore. We go fast. We're going to have them, but sometimes it's a little bit too fast, and we need to be careful about it, because that's how you close out games. Now, Herb, though, I will push back on this, because the one thing that gives me confidence is our free throw shooting. Yeah. That is a really good way to close out close games against tough opponents, and I think we have that. So I think we're going to be okay in this regard. But we do need to know, like, Kamari McGee had a great game today, and he had a big steal. He was going down the court in a fast break, and he realized he didn't have numbers. He needed to pull out, go to the 3-point line and just kind of pull it back. That was smart. We're not doing that enough. John Blackwell has turned it over in situations like that. Jack Janicki has done it. Tanjay's done it. Everybody's done that. And we need to be careful about how we're doing that. That's going to help us out in close games. Obviously, the lack of a point guard is another issue, and we're getting pressed late in games. That can cause a problem. But I do feel like we've got a pretty good situation going overall. Yeah. Mr. October, team helped with the fire relief efforts on Monday. Well done, Bucky. Yeah, absolutely. They volunteered there, which was great. Will Hannah, UCLA lost, turnovers, and far less shot attempts. End of story. We're going to lose games. We're not a team that's going to, really like go crazy and start doing it.
There's some tough teams coming up here on the schedule. Like Michigan State, they are just beating everyone's head in right now.
They are beating.
And they look athletic and good.
They're so athletic. I watched their game yesterday against Rutgers. It was not pretty for Rutgers. We've got a tough schedule. You mentioned the schedule. Yeah. So we obviously Maryland this week, then we go to Northwestern, then we host Indiana. Then we have this really tough stretch, including Purdue, Oregon, Illinois. February was the month last year, Justin. If you remember, we had a really good January and a really bad February. So let's hope that does not happen. Bo Dragon says MSU Eagles paper tiger.
They're undefeated in the Big Ten right now, so it's hard to call them that.
And I think I've heard this from someone else too, that they're not. I've watched them play. They're really, really good. They're guys off the bench. They go 8-9 deep. Even guys like Fiddler, they've got some transfers coming in. They came in. Their 5 is super athletic. It's going to be a struggle, and we play that game on the road. So we only play them once, and we play them on the road. That's going to be really difficult. Let's have a little fun with basketball. I did a little higher, lower. Justin has not seen these, so we're going to have some fun with this. Put your answers in the chat. We'll end the show on this today. Okay, higher or lower? Let me pull it up here. All right, 13 wins in the Big Ten Conference. So we are currently 6-3. We are in 4th place. I've looked at the full schedule, and I kind of feel like where I'm at on this is a bit higher, but we'll see. 13 wins in the Big Ten. Are you higher or lower? And now you can push on these. You can push on these as well if you want to. What's your answer,
Justin? So we're almost halfway through, and we effectively could be at 7-3. But the hardest part of our schedule is coming up. I'm going to say lower, okay, because I do think that they're playing the toughest part of the schedule coming up. It's probably like 12. I do think that's within play, but I think 13 would be too many.
So my prediction is 13-7 or 14-6. I'm officially going to go higher on this, or push. I've looked at it all. I've got wins against Nebraska, which was today, of course. Penn State. There's another home game that we can win. A couple road games we can win. Minnesota being one of them. But then there's all these in between games, right? That like the Maryland games that in between section. At Northwestern's one of those that's going to be tough. Home against Indiana is going to be tough. So there's a lot of options out there. I think I'm hoping, because if you get to 13-7 or 14-6, you're going to be a high seed in the tournament, which is really good.
Oh, for sure.
That'll be great. Okay, Justin. Higher or lower, John Tonje averaging 17.5 points per game, which is where he is right now. He is at 17.5 points. He was at 18.2. He has come down to 17.5. Do you think he improves upon this right now, or do you think he regresses backwards and goes under 17.5 points per game average?
I think he regresses, but I don't think substantially. I think he stays probably above 16. So I think he's going to be an effective player the remainder of the season. I just don't know how many 20-plus games he's going to have going forward.
So I actually kind of want to I kind of want to push on this, but I'm going to go a little bit up, and I'll tell you why. Boy, his three-point shot is looking really good. And Ryan made a good point today that he can kind of shoot with very little space. He's very quick, got a really quick release.
Got a good release, yeah.
And the one thing that we've seen from him, and we saw from this in the game at USC where he had no points. If he feels like he's shut down and now teams are keying on him, they're taking away the dribble off to the right. He wants to obviously go to his right every time, and he wants to dribble penetrate. They're taking that away. Before, he was kind of like, all right, fine, I'm just going to pass it up. I'm going to do something else. Now he's really building this 3 game up, and he's shooting a lot more. If you look at his total shots in the last few games, it's ticking up, especially from 3. That's going to continue, and I don't really see his percentage getting a ton lower. I think he's around 30, 37, 38 right now. It's going to go down a little bit, but it's not like the guy isn't going to be a prolific 3-point shooter for the rest of the season. I think he still will be, and that's why I think he actually can raise this up a little bit, just because now he's got multiple ways of scoring, when before it was really just the free throw line and all that stuff. And he's still going to get that. The season progresses, refs call things tighter. I think he's still going to have a really, really good season. I did want to pull that up. He's averaging 38.6% from 3. He's not going to keep that up, but he is shooting on. He's taking 4.6 attempts per game.
My perspective is the schedule is going to toughen up, and the teams that we're going to play are going to actively try to take away both Blackwell and Tonje. So those are the guys they're going to key on, and that may force – we may still win some games based off of it because it will force other players to step up. But I think that that's most likely what's going to happen is we're going to have to find other ways to beat good teams going forward than just those two going off for 40 points together.
Which brings me to my next one. Max Klesmit is currently shooting 29.2% from 3. Higher or lower, Justin? 31% as his finishing number from 3-point.
I want to say higher, but like when I've watched him today, and I said it in our group chat, I'm like, he's rushing everything. Like he doesn't look like he's comfortable at all. And until he starts to look like he's comfortable shooting, it's hard for me to feel like it's going to go up, because some of the shots today were not even close. Like I looked at it, it's like watching your little brother just rifle the ball at the backboard, and I'm like, what are you doing? He's really struggling to shoot. And that's like we talked about, he needs to do a better job at attacking the rim, because it's just tough to watch right now. Like you see him catch it in rhythm, and then it just looks like everything falls apart the second he goes up.
I mean, I wish he would try to shoot more inside the arc, because to see the ball go through the hoop, I mention that almost every week. He's not doing that. He didn't do it again today. I don't know why. I think it's going to be higher, just because, man, like, come on, he's still a shooter and he's still shooting them. But more often than not, he's 2 of 7, 2 of 8. I do think the nuclear games are going to happen. I cannot imagine that we're going to go through this season and not have a total nuclear game.
Because
and the thing is, like, streakers are shooty. I mean, streakers are shooty. Shooters are streaky. What the hell did I just say? Shooters are streaky. And
I don't even know what to say.
They are going to live shows. Shooters are get streaky, and he's going to get hot at some point. I can't imagine a situation where this guy, 29%, come on, and even under 31%, like, he is going to get hot. He's going to gain confidence. And I think his minutes are going to go down. McGee's minutes should probably go up, because
I would agree with that.
By the way,
McGee has been playing lights out.
Do you know what McGee's 3-point percentage is? Do you have a guess?
Almost 60.
50? 54.8%.
It did dip down a little bit. He was shooting 57 for a while.
And it's not like he's not taking them. He's taken 2.2.
He was like 4 of 6 today, wasn't he?
Yeah. Now Klesmit's taking 6.3 attempts per game from 3.
That's way too many for a guy that's shooting that poor.
But I want him to keep shooting because I think he can shoot himself out of it. I really do. I know that a lot of people are a bit down on Klesmit, and I get that. And I'm all for him lowering his minutes to give minutes to McGee. But I want him to shoot those because if he doesn't shoot, boy, his confidence is going to go through into the tank, and then it becomes a liability for us.
How
if
is
he
it
continues
not?
to shoot? But if he continues to shoot, then he's going to return it around. I have confidence he turns it around. I really do.
I want to give him. I need to see it. I guess that's the issue I'm having right now. And when I'm watching him, I said it. I made the comment about Amos when we were talking about it, when he was driving to the hoop. I said he's a guy who doesn't look like he has a plan. When he's like, I'm just putting my head down, I'm going towards the rim. He doesn't really know what he's going to do when he gets there. I feel kind of like that. Like you watch a player, I compared him to a baseball player not having a plan. I kind of feel like it's watching Klesmit right now is like watching a guy who's in a horrific hitting slump, who just doesn't look like he has a prayer at the plate right now. And I'm praying that he kind of figures it out and just gets in the flow and feels comfortable, because I look at him and it's like, you see a hitter that's not comfortable in the batter's box. That's what Klesmit looks like every time he steps behind the arc. Like he's not feeling it. And you could tell by the second he releases the ball right now, I can tell by his release. I'm like, that's not a good shot. Like that's not going in. He just looks like he's like a half a tick too fast, where it just doesn't look smooth.
I mean, we're going to need him. I mean, we're averaging. We got all of our starters are averaging over 10 points a game, which is great, and hopefully it stays that way. And Klesmit can do that because they're all Klesmit, Winter, and Crowell are all at 10.4 points per game right now. Bo Dragon says McGee is our BJ Armstrong. Feed him the ball. I love BJ Armstrong. My dad went to Iowa, and when BJ Armstrong was there, and I watched that for sure. Mm-hmm. He says McGee can shoot you out of the gym. Klesmit will turn over the ball at the worst time. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the one thing I don't think anyone's going to argue about right now is that McGee needs more minutes. He played 18 minutes today. You need to give him more minutes out there. He deserves it. He's playing really, really well. Okay, 2 more to end here today. Higher or lower? 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. Higher meaning a better seed, so technically a lower number, and lower being a higher number. Where are we at?
I'm going to say I think it's higher. I think this team is capable of finishing strong and being like a 23-1 team, maybe potentially even 24. And if they do that, I think that puts them at like a 4 seed, maybe a 3.
I mean, if we do that, we'll be if we get to 24 wins, we'll be at like I think 14 wins in the conference,
8 or something like that.
That's pretty great. Yeah, I mean, I also think higher. Our net ranking is 22 right now, which probably went up a little bit after today's game. So maybe 20, 21. And I think that we've got good games coming up on the schedule that if we can nab a couple more quad 1 wins, we should be able to get a top 4 seed, which would be great. Obviously, if we can get to a 3, if that means we're probably going to be close to winning the conference, that would be even better.
Get some big wins.
Yeah, that would be really good, because then you have a slightly easier path to the Sweet 16. Which we desperately need. And let me just get a couple comments in here. Quick. Wow, Bo Dragon, they're probably a 2 or a 3. Wow, there you go. Gabe Ramos, they'll be a 4.
If you want to be a 2, you're going to probably have to get to 26, 27 wins, I think.
You're going to have to win the conference, period. You're going to have to win the conference. Herb Herman said, would 4C allow us to play in Milwaukee, or will they need to get to the 3 line? Actually, look, I think that I know Milwaukee is one of the pod sites this year for the first couple rounds. If that's the case, then yeah, I mean, one year when it was in Milwaukee, we were a 6. They put us down at 6. We could play Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. But if we're a top 4 seed, they're going to likely put us in that scenario. They're not. If we're a 5 or a 6, I don't think they're going to do that. They're not going to do that to the whatever the corresponding 3 or 4 is. If we can get to the Sweet 16 seeds, we'll have some preferential location treatment because we'll be the highest seed in that bracket. And then if Milwaukee is a pod seed, then we should be in a really good spot. Okay, last one, Justin, the big one here: higher, lower, round of 32 finish. Higher, of course, being deeper into the tournament.
If they play like they've been playing, they should be. There's no reason they shouldn't be a Sweet 16 team. I think that's their upside. I think that a lot of teams are going to struggle with their offense. we've seen a big enough sample size at this point that I feel like the offense is going to travel. Like, this is what it is. Some of the things we saw last season that were problematic for me, where I saw teams really getting into them defensively, we really haven't seen that this year, where you saw them get physical and just struggle. Like that last year's team, there were games that I flat out told you, like going into the NCAA game, I'm like, they're going to play this way. And that's how they came out and played against us. I don't think they're going to be able to do that against this team. It's just a different makeup compared to last year, and it's a better makeup. So I think that this is a team that's going to be able to score the ball. The question is going to be will they be able to stop it? Because at times the defense looks really rough with this team, but at times it's pretty solid, and they're capable of stretching the lead on teams. The biggest takeaway from this team has been the point differential is probably significantly higher than it's been in a while.
There's no doubt about that. And the efficiency is ridiculously high as well. I'm trying to look up the pod sites for the 2025 tournament, and I don't see them yet. But Milwaukee, Fiserv Forum. So that's great. So yeah, we should be able to get Milwaukee if we're a top 4 seed. Listen, that's a big one. I mean, that having Milwaukee in there is actually huge. So if we can get that, I think that's it. So my answer is higher. I absolutely think we're a Sweet 16 team. I will be disappointed if we're not a Sweet 16 team. Definitely depends on the matchups. But if we get a top 4 seed and we're in Milwaukee, it's shambolic to not get to the Sweet 16. And we really need to do it, especially if we're playing in front of our home fans. Mm-hmm. We have to be able to do that. But lot of things to be happy about. Not a ton in sports right now. The NFL being a disaster today, unless you're an Eagles fan or a Chiefs fan. But Wisconsin basketball looks to be in a really good spot. We're not that far away from spring football, which is great. Next week, we're going to be back to talk more about Junior Day with Nick Osen from 247 Sports. He's already coming on that show next week. So we're going to dive a little deeper. If anybody has any particular questions on prospects or anyone that they like from Junior Day, put that in the comments of this show or hit us up on Twitter, and we will be sure to bring that name up to Nick Osen and try to get some info, and we'll put up some more film next week from several other guys. Any last thoughts before we close the show today, Justin?
Well, we're 1 week into workouts for the football team. Hopefully everything's going well there. Hopefully it's a start to something big this year. Basketball, I think they just need to keep rolling. Like, this team just needs to keep playing at a high level. Hopefully they'll tighten some things up on defense, which will give them another notch. And like I said, if Klesmit starts clicking, this team, the ceiling for this team is really high. I don't know what the ceiling is at that point. There's not really anyone I look at in college basketball that I think is unbeatable. So it'll be really interesting to see what they're capable of.
Before our next show, we have 2 road games, Maryland and Northwestern. Once again, I will say, split them. If we can split this week at Maryland, at Northwestern, if we can win one of those games, that's going to be a really successful week. And that's what I want from this. If we go 0-2, it's not unheard of. It's not crazy, but I would really like to see a split this week, which would be really, really good.
I think they're going to win these 2.
I mean, I think Maryland is... I saw Maryland. I watched the entire game for them destroying Illinois, at Illinois, by the way. I think those 5s are going to give us a lot. Those bigs are going to give us a lot of problems.
And that very well could be.
I think Reese is going to give us problems. Queen's going to give us problems. We'll see if we can get him in foul trouble. I don't know. Look, we'll be beyond excited if we go 2-0 this week, but just get a split and let's keep this season rocking and rolling. We will be back again next week to talk about Junior Day and, of course, more basketball as we progress into the Big Ten season. Thanks for joining us. And as always, on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Bucky Report or The Bucky Report Podcast from wherever you get your content. Until next time, on Wisconsin.